أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear viewers everywhere, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to this episode of Reflections upon the verses of the Quran. As the verse said that you had been recited to your ears right now, the meaning of it is, don't they reflect upon the verses of the Quran, or do they have locks upon their hearts? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us of those who have locked hearts, because we want to have open hearts. And to have open heart, you need to do reflection. And reflection is as simple as this: trying to understand and read not just the line, read between the lines. And this requires making a research. Either you can do this research by yourself, or you consult the people who are expert in this field, which is فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you don't know, so ask the people of dhikr. You can consult the authentic books, you can consult the reliable sources, but don't let it pass. You need to go and understand the essence of it. And this is the one problem, I think, that some people fall into it, is that when they consult average people. They listen to anyone. They don't go and look for the best or the more specialized person in this field, which usually we practice. For example, if you are building your house, you're trying to look for the best engineer in the area. And sometimes even you can get one or hire someone even from overseas, because this is your house. You care about it. We need to use the same concept when we look into the religion. When we look into the Quran and we want to understand, don't go to any scholar. No, you have to select the most specialized one in the area, because you want to get the best. You want to get an open heart, and this cannot be done without accessing the right knowledge and the correct knowledge. Today we are going to reflect upon one of the verses, which is in chapter 38, and it's verse number, or ayah number 5. I like to say ayah all the time because it's evidence that it is from Almighty Allah. It reads, as you see on the screen in front of you, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أجعل الآلهة إلها واحدا إن هذا لشيء عجاب. Wow, it's a beautiful verse. The meaning of it can be translated into, as what you see on the screen, has he made the aliha, the gods, all into one God? Meaning, referring to Almighty Allah. Verily, this is a curious thing. This is a strange thing. How can it happen? This statement is said by the unbelievers at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he invited them to the concept of La ilaha illallah, to this belief that there is no God except Almighty Allah. It sounded to them so strange that they couldn't believe in it, simply because they lived in a culture, and the key word in my topic today is the culture. They lived in a culture that had lots of gods and lots of idols. To the best of our knowledge, that there were approximately 360 idols around the Kaaba, around this black cubic thing that you see Muslims are revolving around in their tawaf. There used to be 360 idols, and there are many other idols scattered here and there. And the names of these idols are mentioned in the Quran. Yes. Because they lived in that culture, they were raised in this culture. When they were young, they have seen all these idols around them everywhere. When they grew up, they passed by them. It became part of them. This is the culture here. The culture becomes part of a human being because he is frequently exposed it and regularly exposed to it, and until it becomes part of him or her. And sometimes we don't investigate these things, because this was the norm at that time among those tribes who lived there. It sounded to them very strange that there is only one true God. They used to see many gods, and this became the norm for them. Oh, now you can see where I'm coming from. Now you can say that, okay, are you telling us that sometimes the cultures have negative impacts? Absolutely true. If you raise this question, yes, this is true. You can see that. Almost in every culture in the world, no exception, you will find that there are negative effect of the culture because usually the country that you live in, or the community that you live in, or the society that you live in, whether it's a small society like a school, whether it's a large society like a country, you will find some cultures are being educated and taught to you every day through the teachers, through your parents, through the media, through all these means that affect human beings until it becomes part of you without investigating it. And I can give you some examples in different cultures, but now let's focus on and let's reflect upon this. Among the Arabs, this was the norm for them to see many idols. And by the way, if you look at this and you see that the Quran criticized this situation of having many idols, there were 360 idols, or a little bit more. Nowadays, in some countries, there are more than 360 million idols. 360 million idols in some countries in the southern part of Asia. And it's not so important to pinpoint to specific countries. This is not the goal. But the goal is that in every culture, if you try to reflect and analyze, you'll find lots of things are nonsense. And people just take them for granted without investigating them, without using the scientific tools to reach whether these things are good or beneficial or not. Sometimes we become so blind. And here is what Islam tells us, what the Quran tells us is that don't follow blindly. You have always to use your right correctly. Use the senses that you have and you will reach the truth. If you use your brain correctly, you will know what's correct and what's incorrect. First thing, when you use it, you know that there is only one God who governs this whole universe, and his name is Allah. When you get this huge or main truth, you will use it in order to access other things and in order to know, to verify whether this is good or bad. You cannot do it by yourself if you depend upon yourself, because we are affected by lots of things. And this is one of the examples. They thought that the norm everywhere in the world is having many idols. This was their perception. This was their culture. And that's what's happening now. No. What happens in your area does not at all mean that this is correct. Even if you say that the majority of the people do this, and again, I'm always focusing on this, the majority does not mean that this is correct or right. The majority rule does not apply to the correct or incorrect. The majority rule is a way that's saying that the majority of the people want this or think that this is right or correct. But the Islamic perspective is different from this. The Islamic perspective says that it's as simple as this. We are humans. We are created by the Creator. Then the Creator knows best. So it's as simple as this. We have to follow His guidelines. And by doing this, we are on the safe side. This is the philosophy, the Islamic philosophy. And you can see that it's very simple for any human being. This is how a Muslim decides that this is right or this is wrong. However, this has nothing to do with my opinion. I think my opinion I love the green color, or I love the gray color, and another person loves a different color. Okay, let's decide now as a group of people now, photographers here in this studio, let's say which color is better for shooting this episode, and the majority of us would say it is, for example, the blue color or whatever other color. This is very well respected in Islam. But when we come to right and wrong, when we come to the truth and the falsehood, no human being can decide by himself. We need guidance, and we need guidance from Almighty Allah. You can see that those people at that time who said this statement did not use their brains correctly. The frame of reference that they referred to was the norm at that time. And this is not right. It's not always the norm that is correct. The norm is not a good tool to measure the right and the wrong. Rather, we need an external guidance, as we mentioned. Nowadays, the majority of the people on the earth may refer to the concept of oneness. There is only one God. It cannot be two, as simple as this. If they are going to two, there are two different conflicting viewpoints. On the top of any organization, on the top of any place or any job, you would find only one. You will find this hierarchy of people that begins with a lot of people and coming to less and less and less, and it ends to the pyramid by having one on the top. Yes, this is very simple, known in every culture and every educated people. This is the norm nowadays, which is the correct thing. But the norm at that time, and still the norm in some communities, is that norm. But here, it is very important to understand this concept. The culture that you live in, or the culture that I live in, or the norms or the traditions and the habits of people usually do not tell you that this is right from wrong. What tells you right and wrong from wrong is that an external power is the creator of all these things on this planet or in this universe. Once you trust him, once you know that he is all-knowing, once you know that he is all-wise, once you know all his names and attributes, you develop this relationship with him, you trust him, you submit yourself to him. Or in other words, you become a Muslim, surrendering yourself, surrendering your brain, surrendering your whims and desires to him and him alone. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is your presenter, Mamdouh Nuruddin Muhammad.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها أفلا يتدبرون القرآن